Okay.
Welcome to Atlanta Community Profiles, a show about living in Atlanta and purchasing a home here. Atlanta Community Profiles is hosted by Lou Whelan, who will talk to experts who know this ever-changing city and its real estate industry. We'll talk to mayors, community leaders, and residential real estate experts. Now, here's Lou Whelan with this week's Atlanta Community Profiles.
Hello there, and welcome to our show. My name is Lou Whelan. I publish the official relocation guides on Atlanta on behalf of the First Multiple Listing Service of Atlanta. I've published those for 25 years as of end of this year, and we have them for Atlanta, for North Fulton in partnership with the North Fulton Chamber of Commerce, one for Gwinnett County in partnership with the Gwinnett Chamber of Commerce, one for Cobb County in partnership with the Cobb Association of Realtors, one for Inside 285. They're available in all real estate brokerage firms and most chambers of commerce at no charge. They're also on my website, atlantacommunityprofiles.com. If you go on that site, you can read the publications, or you can download them, or you can request a hard copy right on from the website. I'm also a realtor with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Georgia Properties. My website is louwhelan.com. Please let me know if I can help you with any of your residential or commercial real estate questions or matters. I'll be more than happy to provide as much assistance as I possibly can. And the real estate market is strong. It's definitely a seller's market for homes under $500,000 and a buyer's market for over 800 and up. Most of the homes that have been sold so far this year have been under 500,000, obviously, and that constitutes a big percentage of the market. The millennial market is getting more and more involved in the market, and is becoming a huge, huge factor in the overall equation, and will become even more so even in the labor market going forward. And our guest today will be talking a little bit about that. But our forecast is a 5% increase on average across the metro area for sales and prices, and pretty close. I've been sticking with that since January, and I've been right on target. And so my crystal ball that I got at a discount at Walmart has served me pretty well. So far, so good. So anyway, as you know, every week we interview community leaders, people who are contributing to the well-being of our community, people who know the market, know the area, and are contributing. And today we have definitely such a individual, Dan Lussier, L-U-S-H-U-R, Lussier, like Sherwood Forest, right?
That's right.
Okay, Dan, welcome to the show. It's first time guest, and it's great to have you on the show. And Dan is managing member, and kind of not a title that doesn't really describe your overall function too well. It's kind of a humble title, I guess, we're really kind of the co-CEO, really, of the company in a way.
Correct, co-owner.
So Dan is a CPA. What's a nice guy like you being in the real estate market? But he has a CPA, and he spent 25 years in the real estate consulting business, commercial and residential. He was also president of Southeast Capital Companies, president of real estate development companies throughout the world. Phenomenal amount of experience. It's hard to describe, but he's been involved in projects such as Windward, his company Windward, Windermere, Laurel Springs and Cummings, Soleil at Laurel Canyon, and just for Atlanta, but similar Woodstock, downtown development, development of condos, and I just went on his website, and what is the address of your website? I've got it into my computer, and I just get that from saved sites addresses.
Yes, it stands for Strategic Real Estate Advisors, which is our company, but the website is SREAdvisor.com.
Strategic Real Estate Advisors. And basically, if there was one sentence that would articulately describe the nature of your business from your website, Strategic Real Estate Advisors is the leading independent real estate solutions provider in the residential real estate industry. We are real estate, market, analytical, financial, development, home building, strategic experts offering end-to-end solutions. So you definitely know the business of real estate. And so you've been in the business for over 25 years, and your partner, Judy Woodall, working together. Basically, from A to Z, what kind of trends do you notice in the real estate market that would affect our lives in terms of real estate?
There's probably a number of those trends really shaping up. We have an aging population, which is really a leading trend. We have a younger population of millennials that are taking longer to enter to the household, industry and living with their family or renting a little bit longer than they're in the past, and that is creating a somewhat of a different trend. As well as, I believe, the cost of land. We've been on a serious cycle, a good cycle, and a long one. And I think one of the trends is kind of pressing that top end in pricing. And one of the hardest things I think out there is to be able to provide affordable housing. And affordable not being low income, but affordable meaning that middle income people really are looking to afford. 300, low 300s, 350, things of that nature are getting harder and harder to find, where you're having to go out farther and farther again, thus kind of leading to our, if you will, the trend of apartment rentals, multifamily, condos, townhomes, much higher density developments out there.
So what kind of properties are you looking for to develop and to help banks with, or who are investors? What kind of projects do you think will be successful going forward and will serve the community well?
I think some smaller deals. Usually, in the old days, we had these great big master plan communities, whether it was Windermere, which was, from Judy Woodall, who is my partner, and originally came from Mobil Oil, who did Windward, as well as she handled John Willis's portfolio, a $300 million home building company at the time. And what you're really seeing, it's harder and harder to go out and be a pure land developer and take on these giant projects because of the infrastructure, the cost, the carry, but also I think the absorption. So some of the trends that are happening is what I call kind of a divide and conquer. Some of the clientele that we're representing today, that Judy's managing, are larger scale subdivisions or master plans, and what we're really doing is starting to break those down into various price points, different product types, really trying to appeal to a much broader, different set of buyers. Thus, where you, in the old days, where you might have had a model, eight unit model park, and you were selling the same type of homes throughout, and maybe that was 300 homes. Now what we're doing is really breaking those down into different smaller enclaves and try to attract a higher absorption, if you will, by offering different products and more quaint neighborhood style properties.
Would that tend to indicate a more heterogeneous type of citizen population, homeowner, or different? A development might appeal to different demographic categories as a result of that?
Yeah, absolutely, I think. And that's why I think the buzzwords today is mixed use. Everybody's into mixed use. We hear the, Avalon has a huge success, and now we hear Halcyon coming on, and we've had the Avenues, and we've had the Forum, and These the Avalon is a mixed use, is really a collection of different types of buyers, different kind of shoppers, different lifestyles.
So in the old days, when my and I could relate to the old days because I've been around for a while, it seems like the developments were more homogeneous in makeup by demographics and larger and more. I mean, everybody was in sort of a similar income and kind of a job, but now things are changing and people are getting away from that.
Yeah, they truly are. Those standard little subdivisions still exist today. Number of builders, especially in the starter homes, that's needed because it's much more production oriented, very, very, very cost sensitive. So it has to operate on that cookie cutter basis. But on a mid-level price points and things of that nature, you're getting a much more mix. I think also the aging population. What we're finding is they kind of want to mix in too. Very, very small percentage of what we call active adults really wants, a very small percentage of the 78 million of us really wants that, what I call that cruise ship on land, like Soleil, a very large master plan, something that has an extreme, amenity package, and a lot more of them are looking to age in place. They're looking to be closer to their family, their community services, that they have access to. So that's what's really changing now a little bit.
So that's interesting. It's kind of the developments nowadays are like a microcosm of a big city, aren't they, in a way?
Yes, you've seen it a lot more. Yes.
Where you have a cross-section of lots of different demographic categories.
Right.
Interests. And so stay tuned. We'll be right back. We have a lot more to cover. Welcome back. I'm Lou Whelan, sitting here with Dan Lussier, who describes himself as a title managing member, but he's really kind of like a co-CEO with his partner Judy Woodall in a company called Strategic Real Estate Advisors. And they are experts in real estate development, and mostly for the residential, but also very much involved in the commercial.
That is correct.
And he's been involved in over $4 billion in sales and equity.
Well, actually, that was more into the financings, whether it's investment, equity, capital debt transactions, being involved with public nature companies like REITs. So that money is much more in the investment and the debt side of the business.
Okay.
As entities as well as projects.
Well, you have a pretty impressive website. I went on your website, and it describes really very well the process that one would go to for development of a project from A to Z. It's extremely well done, and we could talk about that. We could talk about the process.
Sure.
And it's very detailed. I could see that was done by a CPA.
Actually, my partner had a great deal to do with that because she's an expert in sales and marketing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you certainly have the details and warmed up, but the one thing that I could see that you're very focused on is research.
Yes.
And it looks like you do go to great lengths to research a concept
Yes.
before anything is done, any ground is broken. Tell us a little bit about the components of research that we would undertake to before breaking ground on any kind of a project.
Well, it differs it really differs for different approaches and who does what and how. Real estate's a very dynamic and very it's not a cookie cutter business. We look at it from a standpoint if we're looking for a master plan, our research really drives down into the sub-markets, the surrounding markets, the buyer profile that you need to attract, as well as the buyer demands. What's in the gaps, what's not there, what people really want, what they're willing to pay for, and also making sure you understand your competitors, who's coming in the market, who has been in the market, and also the evolution of what that market dictates. As we spoke prior, North Forsyth is a very, very evolving, changing, area, as well as Sugar Hill and these outlying areas. At one time, they were kind of looked a lot more rural. The dynamics are changing, and with big box retail coming in, with the employment nodes pushing out, those are now starting to change. And so those types of research that you have to do on those projects are a little different than doing it in infill downtown, because what you're trying to do is you're assessing a trend. You're trying to time out. You're trying to peg out the path, the growth path, when it's happening, who's doing what and how, and who's really going to be the employment base moving out there, i.e., young families usually, things of that nature, or people getting ready for retirement that still wanted that rural feel.
The millennium market is really going to be the key buying market in the real estate market going forward. And besides the active adult market, and then you have other components of that as they even as they age. But a famous hockey player, I think it was Gretzky, said, "Always skate to where the puck is going."
Correct.
So, for the sake of these millenniums, where's the puck going?
Right. Well, their issue has been, being young and going through that recession, and now it's the job market's very tough. The competition, income, productivity hasn't increased as well as as much as the pricing of homes has, and so their market is a rental market much more. However, we're now reaching that point of where rents are as much as mortgages out in the outlying areas,
or
so
more even, in many cases.
So you're really seeing that that movement out to towards Gwinnett County, North Forsyth. Those outlying areas are really starting to attract them, and really you can kind of peg that path of growth to the south side as well. I mean, Jonesboro, things of that nature. Noonan, Peachtree City, and the growth is really dictated by jobs and trying to be in proximity to their job base.
Yeah, I lived in New York City for many years, and then I commuted in from the suburbs, and people aren't willing to do that anymore. There's 2 hour or an hour and a half commute each way, or at least the millennial generation is not as willing to do it as it was when I was first entered the labor market.
That is correct. One thing they're looking for is MARTA, the system. They're looking for public transportation, but also if you go up like the North 400. What you're really seeing is the job base is not just Atlanta anymore. I mean, you have Buckhead, but Perimeter's got 35 million square feet of office. You're going up to Alpharetta, which has a very, very large service, call basis. A lot of industry. Avalon's putting in a number of office elements. So the work base is really, the employment base is really pushing out, and I think that's what's giving them that ability to start buying homes in a much more affordable area.
What kind of clients do you work with and try to help, basically?
Well, it varies with the cycle. In the down cycle, my partner Judy worked heavily with lenders and working out, also with builders or developers that needed to work out of their portfolio. Currently, it's an up market. We work with land developers, and basically we brought in the home building concept, and we're finding that we're teaching land developers to become their own home builders or to create builder programs, so they can kind of what I call that divide and conquer, and kind of increase that absorption. We work with home builders. Recently, I worked with a $700 million commercial development company out of Chattanooga, and very successful retail developer, and really stepped in there as kind of a senior advisor to the CEO and helped them with organizational development, kind of reorganize their organization, their management chart, if you will, and helped her. It was a female, and really helped her restructure the company so that she can take it to the next level.
You work with banks as well, right, with their portfolios? And
yes.
Investors?
Yes. Not much need with the banks today. They're pretty happy right now, and their portfolios are a little bit. But we still do. Recently we just got called by a banker asking us for a feasibility study. They like to hire us because we're independent. Developers, by their nature, are very optimistic, and so they need sometimes a little help with the analytics and the really kind of looking at the historical facts. So that's where we help.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're going to ask Dan if he could give some advice to specific demographic markets such as millennials and active adults and so forth. So very interesting material. Stay tuned. Welcome back. I'm Lou Whelan, and I'm sitting here with Dan Lussier, who is managing member, really co-chief executive officer, but he's pretty humble, of a company called Strategic Real Estate Advisors. He's co-partner with Judy Woodall. And we've talked a lot about your background, at least. Tell us a little bit about Judy, your partner's background, and some of the major accomplishments that she's had in the real estate development market.
Right. I think that's what makes us a great team is we've come from different aspects of business. And her background really started with Mobil Oil, who, probably a lot don't know, but Windward was Mobil Oil, and she helped start Windward. She was the person involved on a day-to-day basis, sales, marketing, product mix, really developing builder programs, extensive builder programs. Brought 20 some odd different builders into that area to build the different products and things of that nature. Tara Brook, I believe, bought off the portfolio of mobile. She went on with Tara Brook, and she handled the development of Windermere, Laurel Springs, and then she went on and really handled John Willis's portfolio, day-to-day management operations. John Willis was a $300 million a year home builder, and then we got together.
So we talked earlier, and by the way, if you missed any of this conversation, it is on my website without commercial interruption, AtlantaCommunityProfiles.com, and pretty interesting, particularly if you're thinking about getting into the market or trading up or trading down to figure out what's going on. We've been through a rough time up and down, and people are very concerned, particularly I know the people just getting into the market, because that may be one of the reasons why they're delaying getting into the market age-wise. Well,
what aspect of the market now in an industry environment for people to enter our industry, it's gotten a lot tougher. In the good old days, as we talked about it, financing money, projects were a lot easier. Today, attracting capital is a lot more difficult. Underwriting of loans is a lot more difficult, and that's not only for home buyers, but it's for home builders or developers, commercial developers as well, making it a lot more challenging. And I think really increasing the level of knowledge and capabilities and sophistication than the good old days of just going out and trying to build on a piece of land. So that has changed, and I think it's really changed on the if you will, the home buyer side as well.
What kind of advice would you give to the active adult community and also the millennials in terms of getting into the real estate market, or moving up or moving down or moving even laterally a lot of times?
Are you talking about buying or
buying, selling? What kind of overall advice? I mean, you are a consultant. How would you consult me, for example, if I were to ask you, what should I do? I'm getting to a point where I would, getting a little older, I'd like to live near my grandchildren maybe and still be active and work part-time maybe or full-time and contribute to the community. What kind of advice in terms of real estate would you give me?
Well, if you're talking about I guess we'll start talking about aging in place. The question is, it's really what people want and where they'd like to go. If you want to live a resort style life, you have to look on moving. You're going to look at a highly amenitized subdivision. You may move. Or aging in place is hey, I like where I'm at. For instance, I live in the Perimeter area. I like where I'm at. I would like to age in place, and I think those type of things is where a developer or builder really has to concentrate on, and that is providing a product, or you buying a product, or adapting a product that allows you to do that longer as we're getting older, and then to make sure that you're living around the services you need in order to sustain that life through a longer period of time. Now, the total other end of the spectrum is millennials. They want services. They want restaurants. They want the retail environment. They want the social aspects. And I would tell them to really look at that path of growth, i.e. those early stages when you see Avalon or Halcyon growing, and those are kind of areas that they're going to probably look to. They're still the infill, the downtown lifestyle.
In some ways, the millennial generation and the active adult market have very similar common denominators in what they're looking for.
Yes.
And for the first time, really.
Yeah.
But you have to really be an expert, and you are an expert, obviously, in psychographics and demographics, as well as the construction business. You have to know the whole thing from A to Z. I guess that's what you're talking about on your website, from A to Z.
That's correct.
Everything.
And it takes more than a couple of people. It takes a team.
So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm Lou Whelan, sitting here with Dan Lussier. Lussier, S-H-U-R, if I want to make sure I have that. Lussier.
That's it.
Co-CEO, even though he only describes his title as managing member. He's got a good sense of humility, along with his partner Judy Woodall, or co-partners in a company called Strategic Real Estate Advisors. And again, I'd just like to read their mission statement, kind of as Strategic Real Estate Advisors is the leading independent and real estate solutions provider in the residential real estate industry. We are real estate market, analytical, financial development, home building, and strategic experts offering end-to-end solutions. And he's built a team that is really consists of many people who are experts in the real estate business, commercial and residential, and development, and consultants. They know the demographics. They do the research. And I was particularly fascinated, by the way, Dan, on a particular aspect of your website. You had the caption due diligence. And in the past, there was not a lot of due diligence exercised, which is probably why we had the terrific recession that we had. So what are we doing now, due diligence-wise, to make sure that we don't go through that kind of a period again?
Well, I think due diligence existed at a different level, and I think also the lending and the money world has dictated quite a bit of it. You're going to spend a lot more money up front. You're going to have to be a lot more serious about your project because you're going to be spending a lot of front-end capital your own before you really get that commitment by everybody else. Due diligence is vitally important. One is, most important when you look at it, your piece is really zoning, your entitlements. The government is, as you know, a lot of the counties and the governments are really spending a lot of time in comprehensive planning, how they're planning the environment of their cities, the connectivity, their uses, and it's becoming a field unto itself. You don't just show up and here's a site plan anymore and try to get it done. There has to be reasons. And due diligence, I think, really stems, more importantly, that it takes a depth of knowledge. Due diligence isn't as easy as going out and saying, well, I know how to do an environmental report, or I'm just going to do some site planning and we'll get it rezoned. It really takes that development knowledge. It really takes the knowledge, understand what the comprehensive plan is from a city, and to help guide them as well, because they're looking for it as well. So it's not just that, but title issues, survey issues. Surveys very, very important. You have the environmental aspects, what's in the ground, what's around it, as well as the environmental. Here you always have the wetlands issues. And all of these things at any point in time can kill a project. Recently I just did one, everybody thought there was sewer, and sewer was there. However, it's being supplied to a school. And so for us to access it, there has to be a long, drawn-out process to try to get the proper easements, to try to get the proper connections. And by the time that happens, I'm out of time with the seller, and as well as I'm out of money in terms of the feasibility, because it's just, it would take a much larger project. So those are the kind of things. Due diligence is vitally important. You want to find these things out as quickly as possible, as well as you want to make sure you're understanding what's coming. Another area, Georgia Department of Transportation is doing so much work, so much growth area. North Forsyth, 369 is becoming exit 18. It's they're going to commence construction on an interchange. They're widening 369. There's a Walmart out there. All of these things really affect your property. And one of the properties we were working on, it affected a taking because they had to go about 50 to 75 feet into the property because they're widening the road. So those are, that again affects what you can pay for it, but also the timing and how you can achieve it, because obviously if they're under construction, if you have a retail project, a retailer doesn't want to sit there and have their ingress and egress mitigated or affected by the construction that transportation is doing. So due diligence is critical. And then there's the other side of due diligence, where Judy really gets involved in, and that's the market due diligence. Who's the buyer, who's the user? Whether it's commercial, is a tenant coming in, or if it's a home buyer, what are your schools? What are your services? And then what type of project you really need to build at what price points to fit that market.
How has due diligence changed in the last 20 years or 15 years even?
I would say it's gotten a lot more involved, a lot more complicated, and it's very expensive.
Do you see that as a trend become even more so going forward, particularly with the environmental protection aspect?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's vitally necessary. And I would say, in the good old days, I'm dating myself, but back in the 80s, I would spend up to $50,000 for a large neighborhood retail shopping center. Today, it's nothing to blow past $150,000. And in Florida, I'm doing a senior housing deal, which is a 120 bed facility, and we have incurred north of $500,000.
Okay, well, great to have you on the show, Dan. Dan Lussier describes his title as managing member of the Strategic Real Estate Advisors, experts in consulting real estate for commercial and residential. One of the leading expert in Atlanta. It's great to know you, Dan, and your partner Judy Woodall, who've contributed well to the community by exercising due diligence and helping us to understand what's going on and benefiting all parties. And now stay tuned for Dr. Bill Williams, CEO of Swanee Dental Care, our dental health experts.